Welcome to Let's Read Mobile, presented by the Boys and Girls Clubs of South Alabama. I'm Cynthia from All Saints Episcopal Church, and I'd like to read you one of my favorite books, Louie the Buoy, a hurricane story by Allain C. Andry III. On the Mississippi Gulf Coast, in the Bay of St. Louis, stands a buoy named Louie. Louie had been towed to the silver green waters of the Bay of St. Louis on a barge by the United States Coast Guard Lieutenant Manley and his crew. They made deep holes in the sand to hold his 4 long legs so Louie would stand firmly in his position in the middle of the bay. He has 4 wooden legs painted with a special paint to keep away barnacles and seaweed. His platform supports a red wooden diamond marked with the number 14. On top of the red diamond, a flashing light automatically turns on at sundown and turns off at sunrise. On a nautical chart, Lieutenant Manley marked the exact spot where Louie had been placed. He told Louie, "We will give copies of this chart to all boat captains using the waters of the Gulf of Mexico and the Bay of St. Louis. In the daytime when they spot you, and at night when they see your flashing light, the captains will know where to turn for a safe channel, either to the left for Jordan River or to the right for Wolf River. Remember, it is important that you never move, because if you do, the boat captains will be unable to find their way." Lieutenant Manley told Louie about the big red buoy off Pass Christian that moved one morning just to look at some mullet. Before he returned to his spot, 3 shrimp trawlers and a skiff had run onto the sandbar, and a big white schooner had almost sailed onto the beach. While Lieutenant Manley was talking, Louie pushed his legs deeper into the sand. He knew he would never move. The boat captains could count on him. Louie enjoyed being the buoy for the Bay of St. Louis. Schools of bronze-colored croakers and silver mullet swam around him and hid behind his legs when redfish or speckled trout swam by. Flat brown flounders lay on the sand beneath him. His favorite fish were the striped sheep's head that ate any oysters or barnacles sticking to his legs. Blue claw crabs crawled sideways across the sand below him. Sometimes they would back out of their tight old shells, then burrow safely near one of his legs until their soft shells and claws had grown hard and strong again. Seagulls, terns, and pelicans rested on Louie's platform. He liked their squawky talk and watched them dive into the water for fish dinners. The pelicans were his special friends, and he was happy there once again were so many of them around the bay. Fiddler crabs tickled Louie as they scooted and scurried around his legs and crossbeams. But remembering Lieutenant Manley's instructions, he was always careful not to laugh so hard that he moved away from his position. It was lonesome in the bay during winter. The crabs buried in the muddy bayous, the fish swam to the deeper, warmer Gulf, and the seabirds migrated to their offshore island rookeries. The days were short and the nights were long. The cold north wind was so strong it blew most of the water out of the bay, leaving the piers standing over long, wet sandbars. Even in winter, though, many boats passed by to keep Louie company. The captain of the shrimp trawler, the Katie A, was a special friend. Whenever he passed by, he tooted his horn, tipped his hat, and said, "Thanks, Louie, for showing me the way home." Now it was summer again, and Louie was very happy. But this August day was different. Louie wondered why more boats than usual were coming through the open bridge into the bay. Then his friend in the KDA passed by, tooted his horn, tipped his hat, thanked Louie, and warned him, "Be careful, Louie. A dangerous hurricane named Camille is heading this way and will reach the bay by nightfall." Louie knew that hurricanes were filled with strong winds and giant waves. He was a little bit afraid, but still confident this hurricane could not move him. The U.S. Coast Guard and the boat captains were all counting on him. By early afternoon, Louie was aware of a strange stillness in the bay. The boats, birds, and fish had disappeared. The water began to rise around him. The wind grew stronger, and by 3 o'clock, the sky was so dark, Louie's light came on. Soon, howling winds uprooted oak trees and twisted the tops off of pine trees. Enormous waves filled houses with water and washed some of them away. Piers were ripped out of the sand and crashed onto the shore. In the black water swirling around Louie, trees, chairs, fences, refrigerators, toys, beds, and automobiles tumbled and tossed about. Suddenly, a huge wave enveloped Louie. His light flashed several times, then went out. "Oh no," cried Louie, "my leg's coming loose." He had almost pushed it back into the sand when a large piece of concrete from the bay bridge bashed into him. All 4 legs were jerked out of the sand, and he was rolled over and over in the deep, black, turbulent water. Louie didn't know when the hurricane ended. He didn't hear the wind growing quiet or see the water slowly flowing back into the Gulf. When the storm was over and the sun came out, Louie was on his head in the Jordan River marsh. His darkened light stuck deep in the mud. Not only had he moved, he had been washed several miles away from his position in the bay. He was ashamed. He had disappointed everyone who counted on him. He hoped no one would find him and he could hide forever in the marsh. But one day, as Lieutenant Manley was steering the U.S. Coast Guard cutter up the Jordan River looking for missing buoys, he spotted Louie's 4 legs sticking out of the marsh. As the crew lowered the dinghy and rowed toward him, Louie burrowed deeper in the mud, trying to hide. When they finally pulled him out and stood him upright, Louie said tearfully, "I'm so sorry, Lieutenant. I was not able to keep my legs in the sand." The lieutenant saluted Louie and said, "You have nothing to be ashamed of, Louie. On the day of Hurricane Camille, I was in the Gulf of Mexico in my Coast Guard cutter, warning all the fishermen and shrimpers about the storm. My ship was filling with water, my compass was broken, and I couldn't see any stars or buoy lights. I was afraid the terrible storm would sink my ship and drown my brave crew. Just as I had given up hope, I saw a buoy light flashing in the distance. It was you, Louie, in the Bay of St. Louis. I steered toward you, and just as I passed by, a giant wave covered you with all its force. Your light went out, and you tumbled under the water. But you had already shown me the way to the safe harbor up the Jordan River. There is no reason for you to be ashamed. In fact, because you were the very last buoy to remain standing in this giant hurricane, Louie, you are a hero." The Coast Guard repaired Louie's broken ladder, painted him, gave him a new light, and towed him back to the Bay of St. Louis. They marked his position on the nautical chart and attached a new number. Because of your bravery, Louie, you are the #1 buoy of the Gulf Coast. Louie was very proud. He shoved his legs firmly into the sand and started to say in a loud voice that he would never, never move. But he stopped, thought a while, and then quietly said, "Lieutenant Manley, if another hurricane ever comes to the bay, I will try my very best to be brave, and to stand firm in my position. Thank you for joining us today. Don't forget to watch us next time. Until then, let's read Mobile.